Hello, everyone, and how are all of you doing? We are back. We are back for another episode of Rob's Real and Ridiculous Podcast. It is episode number 28. Man Cave Studios, Valley of the Sun. And I can tell you this much, it is like the devil's hole here right now. It is so hot here in Phoenix, Arizona. 113, 115. It's not quite Death Valley, but it certainly feels that way. It feels like it's about 130 degrees. We just cannot wait for this to end. We cannot wait for this to end. I wouldn't mind the heat if it kind of diminished the pandemic, but it certainly didn't do that like most thought. They thought the heat would just put this thing to rest or put it away or put it on pause for a while. But as we all know, it has not done that. Stay safe, stay strong. I hope you all had a good week. I really do. We've got a great show planned for you this week. Had a great interview with Peter Crafts, growing up Boston actor. We're going to get into it. I know you're going to really enjoy it. We had a great time doing it together. For starters, I also want to thank Eric Meza for joining the show last week from Orange County Housewives. We had a great interview together. We had a great conversation as well. And so I want to thank him once again. A lot of good reviews, a lot of good listens, a lot of good views on YouTube. So I really appreciate that. Thanks again, Eric. Before I shoot over to the interview with Peter, boy, did we have a rocky start. You know, we had connected, Peter and I, back and forth on text all week, and we were connected by a mutual friend, Mark DeGeorge, a close friend of Peter's and a guy I knew really well growing up. We went to high school together. And we met up on Wednesday, and we just started to get going on this, and we're trying to figure out the audio on Peter's side. And the next thing you know, I get an update come over on my laptop that I do a lot of the producing and editing on. And boy, it just went into complete crash mode on me. They decided to update just as we're about to start. I could not pause it. I could not postpone it. So needless to say, we didn't get off to the start that I hoped for, and this took a lot longer than I thought in terms of the computer coming back and rebooting. So took about another hour and a half. So I want to thank Peter for hanging in there with me. 3 hours difference. It's one thing. We're about to get started 5 o'clock my time, 8 his. And then it just continued to go on and on and on. And I think on Pete's side, it probably finished closer to midnight when we were able to reconnect. And as we reconnected and got about 80% into the interview, the internet froze, and we froze on Zoom and had to do another Zoom meeting. Needless to say, we put it all together. It was a fantastic interview. So we're going to get to that interview right now. Peter Crafts, I hope you all enjoy.
Hey, how you doing, Rob?
Doing good, brother. Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Dude, I had to track you down, and I know you and I went back and forth for some text messages, and Mark hooked us up a little bit, and I'm like, shit, I don't know if Pete knows me from way back in the day because I went to high school with his brother Gail, but dude, I appreciate you sucking it up, and not sucking it up necessarily, but everybody's time is important to them, and I appreciate you wanting to join the show.
Problem. Thank you.
But as you know, you and I, we grew up in the same city, and, you know, a very small city in Everett. And I still say to this day, I tell my kids, I would not trade our upbringing up for anything. And so just want you to get into that a little bit before we get into the sports and your background with the sport, with the acting background and some of the Boston movies you did.
Okay. Well, like you say, my wife was born in Pennsylvania, and she always says Everett's kind of a cult because everybody has a nickname, and I've been all over it sure happens to you too. I've been all over the country, and she says no matter where we're going, we bump into someone from Everett. You know, like I said, I come from a big family. I'm not sure what your dynamic was, but I come from, there was 8 of us. We had a sister that died before most of us were born. So basically, I was the middle of 9, like I told you. That kind of tells a lot to me. I was the middle of 9 kids. And answers a lot of questions. But so, like I said, we would go places and you'd see someone and oh yeah, I know Gal, like you said, you know Gal, I know Billy, I know your sister, I know you, and the same thing with Everett. It's like we're all related.
Know each other, and when I asked you we talked through I said, Phil, just give me a little bit of information. I already knew it, from back home with everything. And you started sharing the schools we went to, right?
Yeah, yeah,
Our Lady of Grace, the Hamilton School, right? And I remember
yeah.
even playing wiffle ball. Shit, we stuffed the wiffle ball bats with tape and cloth and hit the pink balls into the Cherry Street project. So, so you guys were in Cherry Street, right?
Yeah, Road B. Grew up right in Road B, right down 2 houses down from the Rosses. Danny, Artie, you were graduated with Artie too, right?
Mm-hmm.
I graduated with Artie, Danny. That was a big deal when we were growing up too. So,
And you Pete, I said, I thought about this when you and I went back and forth, and I think about football, and we were talking, we are going back and forth. We're going to get into some New England sports, Boston sports, but Danny was good, man.
yeah, yeah, he was a
Was
great guy.
Danny the Gronk back in the '80s?
Yeah, Danny. The funny thing is, Danny now would be kind of an average. He was like 6'4", 240 was his
Right.
frame. Look at Gronk. Gronk had him by like 20 pounds and 2-3 inches. So, but Danny, one thing with Danny, he was tough as nails. And if it was anywhere near him, he would catch it. It was amazing how good Danny was. It was always like that too. And my brother Billy was on the high school team with Danny, and every once in a while I'll see a picture of Danny and Billy would be in the same team, and I'm like proud of that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But Danny was a good guy. He was as good a guy as he was, like his brother Artie. They're all good guys. The whole family.
Artie was great, man, and as we all grew up on different corners, I think we all thought we were gangs then compared to now, right? Which is a joke. So as much as we would have like scraps in between parks and whatever else, we all aligned, man. We were like a brotherhood.
All right, everybody like somebody marries someone's cut. Like it's ever like what was it, 50,000 people? It's a lot different now. But when we were growing up, it was Irish and Italian, basically.
That was it.
Yeah, I always say the reason my face looks the way it does because there was 7 out of 10 Italian guys I grew up with. If they didn't give me the scars, one of my brothers did.
Oh shit, man. So true, right?
Yeah.
We grew, in this day and age with the millennials and everything else, I think we grew up the right way.
Yeah, me too. Me too. It's tough though. I mean, like I said, because nowadays you see, people smoke and it makes me crazy.
Right.
Everybody smoked back in the day. You know what I mean? My father would have been 93 and my mother would have been 85, and they both died before I was 30. So, but cigarettes and the whole deal. But it was a whole different time. It's like you look now and you go, what, what, you could never get away with like 3/4 of the stuff.
No, man, there's no way. And forget about the degree of sensitivity. We won't even get into that.
No, well, the thing like you said it. If there was a little bit of a beef, you took care of it. And I always say it's kind of like with the market. In the produce setting, I would see guys, wanting to kill each other, and 20 minutes later having a coffee or a beer together.
Right.
That's
how we did it, right?
Yeah.
But what I always remember is, so I moved out here in '81. So went back and forth because we couldn't get adjusted out here. It was just like going from the cool back east, in all honesty, to the wild, wild west. But when I came back, and I'm going to just go back to Danny for a second, because we all grew up at different corners. I was Street, Bucci's Market. You guys were Ann's Variety, Cherry Street. But I always remember that side wall at Ann's Variety. It said, "Toss it to Ross."
Yep.
Right? For the Super Bowl.
Yep. I remember that. That was because there was a big article about Danny from Project to Pros, and that was one of the things in it too. They said toss it to Ross, and I still talk to Artie. I talk to Artie. It's actually his birthday's next week. Almost every year, I do. Every year I call him on his birthday, and same thing. We don't see each other a lot, but when you do, it's a great thing. And it's good to see them, and you appreciate it, and because it brings you back.
It does bring us back, right? And I said, I was opposed to Facebook years ago, and now I'm like attached to social media just because of what I'm doing right now. But I'm like, shit, now I can connect to all the high school guys though, right? So Mark on it. You know, I said, Franny, I just connected with you. There's a bunch of them out there, but it's just because it takes us back.
Yeah.
The way we grew up, you know, we might all be in different states now in different places, but I always feel like there's no tighter brotherhood than the way we grew up.
No, you're right. And it's funny because sometimes, not as much now, but I remember when I first went on Facebook, the last people in the world you would think would be on Facebook are on Facebook. Some of the like toughest guys, and they're like, you know, Facebook are like little girls like me. No, I shouldn't have said that, but
It's the truth. So you know what's funny? So I'm sitting here on a Saturday night 2 weeks ago, and my wife and I are talking. I'm like, I just want to get more guests on the show, and you've always been on my mind. In all honesty, I said, you know, I'll shoot him a Facebook request. He's a couple years older than me. I went to high school with his brother Gal, but I'm just like, shit. I look at like years later now. I'm out here in Arizona. You're out there in Massachusetts. I'm like, who would ever think?
I know.
And like we thought we were like rivals, right? Every place, Swan Street, Oliver Street,
Yep. No, you're right.
rivals. I'm like, now I'm doing this years later, and we're all older, but we're as thick as thieves, right?
Yeah. No, like you said, and I guess I suppose it's that way with most cities, especially small cities. And Everett was a city,
Oh man,
but in a lot of ways it was a town. You know what I mean? Like everybody knew each other. And I always say, I mean, we for us, I mean, like I said, we lost our parents young, but growing up, I always used to feel bad for other kids. Like I would say, oh well, the people looked at us the poor of the poor. You know what I mean? But we weren't. In most ways, I feel that we were original. That sounds stupid, but we were original. You know?
no, it's true. You know, and it has a lot to do with it.
Yeah.
So I know you're running your own business now, right?
Yeah.
This business out of Chelsea Marketplace.
Yep. I've been my brothers, two of my brothers. I don't know if they're a little young. Well, Mark's a lot younger than you, but Bobby graduated in '83.
Bobby, okay, yeah. So 2 years after me, yeah.
You married Rita Hurley, who hung around with Franny.
Oh yeah. I know really well. Yeah.
Was that? Yeah. So they've been married. They got 4 grandkids. They've been together since we were kids. You know, I think he was 15, she was 16. They've been together ever since. So.
Nah,
But that's another thing with Everett too. It's funny how sometimes how many people, it's off the top of my head, I could probably name 4 or 5 couples that I know been together for 35, 40 years from Everett. And then, you know, so.
it's a crap load. Yeah, my sister graduated in '83. My sister Cheryl too.
I probably know.
And it's funny. So out here in Arizona, I've actually I've got somebody that actually works for me. He's from Malden.
Oh.
But then I had somebody that worked for me back in another company, Chuck Pulio, who's from the Village.
Oh, that's
So it's crazy how you run into people. We all kind of migrate and end up in places, but for some reason you connect,
right.
right?
Well,
With people back home.
As we talk about the movies later, John Polsey. Actually, Polsey hung around sometimes at all of. Do you know him, John?
I didn't, but I did a little bit of research to see
Doggy Barnes and them.
how you got pulled into, not pulled in, but asked to join some of these movies that you've been in, which is fantastic. So you know what? We're going to get to that, Pete. But we've been blessed. You know, I always say we've shit. We've gone through some tough times with the Patriots, the Red Sox, the flipping Bruins, and not so much the Celtics back then were really good. As you know, so I'm out here missing all their flipping parades. Not that I would go to them or anything else, but Boston sports, man. I mean, I know the Red Sox just a brutal right now, but God, we're blessed, right?
Yeah. Well, like I say, my daughter, who's 27, my son's a big fan too, but my daughter, I have a picture, still have it of her. It's probably on Facebook if you looked for it. She's little girl, it was the first Brady Super Bowl. The day of that game, she's got all the Patriot stuff on, and you know she fell asleep at halftime and watched the commercials, and then they won. I was all alone in the, you know, when the kids were little. I was still with my first wife, and so watching that game by myself because the kids were so little. And now she's a diehard. She knows more about the Patriots, and she's still in mourning over Brady leaving, but. She literally, Dad, I can't talk about it yet. She'll tell me.
I have no idea what we went through.
I know.
Right?
I know.
So I've got 2 girls, and they're Boston fans. And like, how the hell is that possible, right? Born and raised in Arizona.
Yep.
This is, this is how it is in his house. It'll
Yeah.
never change. And I'll pull for the Arizona teams. That's no knock to the Cardinals, Diamondbacks. There you go, brother. I love Coyotes and the Suns, but this is how it is. And so, a couple years back, right? Was it 2 years ago? Maybe three with the Eagles Super Bowl.
Yeah.
Has never experienced a loss in their life.
Oh, yeah. Well, that's what it is. That's funny. How old are they? They younger than mine?
Yeah, they're young. I got an 8 and a 10, believe it or not. So I started a little bit late.
Yeah, that's all right. And sometimes I look. I wish mine were little.
A 17, I should say. Said an 8 and a 10. Yeah, 10 and a 17. But they never experienced losses like that before.
No, I know. And I will always say that between the Celtics won in '86 and then the next championship, it sounds crazy now, was 15 years. And that was, I remember the guys on, because I listen to Idiot Radio a lot. I listen to the EI and the other ones.
So I'm the fool, too. I listen to Felger and Maz.
Yeah, all day long. Because I'm in my truck. So I probably hear more Zoe and Beetle and that, the early guys I hear. But it's like, I remember Jerry Callahan used to call it Loserville.
Right.
Then we win and like, well, I told you the story a little bit about the Patriots' first Super Bowl where they got murdered by the Bears.
Right.
I was at that game. I was at the game 2 weeks earlier, the Swiss the Fish game. Actually, it was just, me and my brother Jimmy and Billy Lang and a bunch of guys from Cherry Street went, and I was 3 rows back from the field. And I swear to this day that Mosey Tatupu pointed at me when he scored the touchdown.
Tupo.
Yeah, he's God rest his soul. He's passed away too, but he looked right at I know, and I was all in with the Miami fans at the time. For some reason, me and Billy Lang got separated by my brother Jimmy and about 5 other guys. We sat in the whole Miami area.
Yeah.
And I walked down. The game was over, basically. There's a minute left. They were just running up the clock. And Will McDonough, believe it or not, was on the field.
Yeah.
And he sees me. I weigh about 108 pounds at the time. I was probably dropped out of my mind. The other stuff, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I'm ready to jump on the field. And Will McDonough comes and looks at me. He says, "Kid," I look, and I didn't even realize who he was till after. He says, "If you go on that effing field, they'll kill you." So I said, "Okay." I'm running out of the thing, giving the freak. They hadn't won in the Orange Bowl in 20-something years before that game.
Almost 20 years. When you said that to me, you and I went back and forth on email. It's the Squish the Fish. We could never beat frickin' Miami.
No, especially down there. Miami was just, they were just
The hate for the Yankees, right, with Miami?
Yeah. You're right. It was just, because they were so good, and people forget. Like I always say, people hate the Patriots, and
Right.
I hated the Steelers. I hated the Cowboys because they always won.
Always won.
And a nice, funny story is I've only been to California once, and it was January of 2016. And it was to see one of my aunts had just died, long story short. So I wanted to go see my last surviving uncle, my Uncle Tommy. He lives in Palm Springs.
Okay, nice area. Yeah.
My son was working with me at the time. I said, I'm going to go. I go, and I obviously wanted to go to L.A. So I went and stayed with him for a few days, and I rented a car, and I went, I think it was the Saturday, went all the way to L.A., went to the Muscle Beach and all that stuff, walking around. But the God's honest truth, it was the day that the Patriots beat KC to go to the Super Bowl that year.
Oh.
And it was a whole Brady, which is the stupidest thing ever, the air footballs. And I'm getting out of the car, literally Venice Beach. You probably know, right?
I do.
I get a spot, but whatever. First time ever. Literally, it's the first time ever. I'm gonna put my feet down. I wanted to put my feet in the Pacific Ocean too. I always wanted to do that. I'm all by myself because it was easy for me to do that. So
Yeah.
I stayed home. I went by myself. So getting out of the car, I obviously had my Patriots jacket on or something.
Yeah.
And this girl, maybe late 20s, 30, with the boyfriend. I forget what team she had on, but she had a team jacket on, not ours.
Yeah.
And just getting out of the get out of the car, go to put the money in the machine. She looks at me. I look at her. She goes, "I hate your effing team," and she didn't say effing. She looked right at me. I hate your effing team. That's the first experience I got in LA.
Yeah, that's the truth. They're haters, aren't they?
Oh, yeah, but Chicago, everywhere we went, we got it.
We paid our dues.
Well, that's what I always say. People don't realize, and but people tell you, there's no diehards. Of course, there was diehards. Anybody that's around our age was a diehard.
We rode through it all.
Yeah,
Right?
yeah.
That's why we appreciate where they're at now, right?
Yeah, and like you said, with Danny, I know the Patriots weren't that good for the most part when Danny played. So Bengals were my team, basically. You know what I mean? I remember with that when Danny played in the Super Bowl. I probably could have went, but there was so many people that, they had family and everything, and I would have loved to have done that. But, to watch a kid from our own little park play in the Super Bowl, that was to this day. It's like, something for you. Poor Danny passed away. It was a great, you know what I mean? That sucked. But,
That's too young.
yeah, it was 06. May of 06.
Too young, man. So staying on the Patriots real quick, what do you think about this whole Cam thing?
I love it. I think he's good. I mean, why not? I was saying today, I'm like yelling at the radio. Someone say, Stidham, it's great, but Stidham might be there in a couple of years still. But why not try to catch lightning in a bottle? I mean, this kid could, who knows? You know what I mean? This kid could just be if he say even to get a little lucky.
Totally agree. He's a stud. And from what I understand, I know he's a little out there, right? But he's not getting in any trouble outside of football.
No, he never has.
Give him a chance. I love it. I like it. I do.
Yeah, me too. I said it right away. And like I said, my daughter's name's Kaylee, and she's a huge Brady fan, but she's a Patriots fan first, and she'll say that. For me, she's bummed that Brady's gone. But I think literally, if you look at my Facebook, within 10, I was down in Pennsylvania because my wife's people are from Bethlehem, Pennsylvania.
Okay, yeah.
It's funny, her father's a long story, but her father's a huge Red Sox fan. He's 80 years old. He's been a Red Sox fan his whole life.
Wow.
He's been he was at the 67 games, the whole thing. But I put on Facebook, like literally like within 5 minutes of when they got Cam Newton, something like I put wouldn't it be great to see Brady and Cam in the Super Bowl this year? Let's hope Cam plays a little better than he did in the first one.
It'd be so good, wouldn't it? But it's not
never know.
Either, though, right?
Yeah.
Because you plug him into the team last year. I know there was a little bit of fool's gold, so to speak, with the Pats, but the defense was still great.
Yep.
And they're going to get coached up again this year. And then you got Cam. You plug him in. Hopefully, the receivers pull it up a little bit, bring it up a little bit. And then, Brady's got a lot of weapons in Tampa.
Oh, you think about, he may have, besides Moss, he maybe got the best set of weapons he's ever had in the pro.
It's all on him now, right?
Yeah, you got Gronk. You forget that they have Gronk. Every once in a while, the train goes in the back. I got the train like way in the backyard. So.
And yeah, that's good. I like it. That's
yeah.
right. Good stuff. So the Sox suck, obviously, right? So we're done with the Sox this year.
Yeah. I said they're historic. They won tonight. They were all giddy on the news. They won today, because all three teams won today. So it's kind of crazy too to think about it. There's three sports playing right now.
You know, I said to my wife, I said this, and I'm sure you feel the same way. This all of this has just been just a tough, right?
Yeah.
To get through, and for a lot of us sports junkies, just to get through the day to day and the grind of working and everything else. I want to come home and watch a game. So we've suffered since March. Said, now we've got it like it's the flipping Olympics.
Well, that's what it is. Everything they're getting everything in.
Now here it is starting at 9 a.m.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, you got things at 9, right?
Yeah, it's insane.
Yeah.
I was watching the Bruins game today at 1 o'clock, and I had something going on and a meeting, but I definitely wasn't paying attention. But we're blessed, man. I mean, the Celtics are good. They got a good shot. The Bruins played well, and I'm not. I'm still deciding on the whole Tuca decision.
Yeah, they said today a couple of guys on EEI have talked to him, and he said it's something to do with his daughter. Do you hear that part? His daughter.
I did. I was listening to the other knuckleheads on 98.5.
I flip back and forth. Literally, I'm in my truck probably, 6 hours. Like I won't. I'll get it. I'll deliver some. But it takes me like usually a couple hours to pick up into the market.
Listen, like you now, I don't. Do you like the morning guys, Tucci and Rich?
I do. Touch is kind of yeah. Fred's having a kind of a little bit of a problem.
Is it a
He's
Fred can be
on
an ass, can he?
What's that?
Fred can be an ass. I like Rich.
I like Rich. Rich is a pretty good guy. Rich seems like a good guy. Fred's going through some things now. I think he got it sounds like I don't want to speculate.
I gotcha.
His problem. But I was on the radio. I heard him on the radio a few weeks ago, and I sounded on this guy this morning, and he sounded like he might have been a little tipsy, but
I got
but
like Minahan back in the day, right?
oh yeah. He was
Issues, right?
yeah. They all do, and that's I usually can tell before they do. These guys, I'll listen to them. I'll say this sounds like me when 30 years ago.
You know what? I'm dialed in back here. This is where I get my info. I'm Felger and Maz, Merloni, Ordway,
Yeah.
Poirier.
Pretty good.
They're good. They do all right, right?
Yeah. It's funny because certain times now, later in the afternoon, I don't listen to a lot of the late after because I'm home. But the market's fairly early morning. I don't go. I'm not like crazy. I don't go in midnight. Two of my brothers work there, and they're in 1:30, 2 o'clock in the morning. My son works for one of the companies now too. He's in at 3 o'clock in the morning. I don't think I could do it anymore, to be honest with you.
Gotcha.
Just make a week's pay, and
Well, we're getting up there too. We may feel young, but we're still.
I'll be 60 in March. I can't even say it.
No shit.
My brothers will say, "You 60? You don't look a day over 85."
Oh, we.
Especially me and Jimmy are brutal. My wife will, my wife will say, "You two, that's all you ever do is break each other's balls." Again, Everett. I know it's not just Everett, but
But how is Jimmy doing?
he's doing good. He lives in Everett still. Actually, my son Patrick lives on his second floor of his house. They live on Wilbur Street, right? But you know where Wilbur Street is, right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Broadway. Yeah. So
Right there. All right. And then you got Encore there, right? Just outside, right?
yeah, that's another thing I used to have a problem with.
Right?
Yeah.
Little bit of, I guess, anger towards calling it Boston or Everett Encore.
Yeah, well, it turned. Of course, it was supposed to be Everett. Then it started getting close, and it was Boston Harbor. But I think that was to appease because Walsh was kind of kicking his feet a little bit and getting a little. I think they just wanted to kind of have a little piece of it. But
I got
traffic was obviously a lot of the traffic was Boston because it's literally right over the bridge.
It's right there, right around that Rotary area, right?
So they wound up paying. I guess in Revere kind of got a little bit screwed because they didn't want it because supposedly right from the beginning they gave the towns
wasn't that where it's supposed to go?
What's that? Yeah, and then Revere I think was holding out for something else, and they didn't. Whatever it is, I'm not smart enough to figure it out.
You're right.
Encore gave like all the towns around it money. Like Malden got some money, Chelsea, and Revere didn't want it because I think Revere was getting their own, and they kind of got screwed in the long way.
I gotcha. There's always politics involved, brother, right?
Oh my God! Especially another thing, like we say about Everett. Can you remember more political little town than Everett? It's always been like that. Always.
The little flipping city hall on the hill, man.
Yeah. Always. But I always say that it's so political, little town. Like everybody was, but a lot of it was like I said, it wouldn't have an Italian mayor till Vagucci, right?
Right.
It's the Italian, and there was always an Irish mayor. How do you figure?
Right.
It's like Massachusetts, we're a Democrat, but we always have a Republican governor.
Yeah, it's different, no doubt. All right, man. So here's what we're gonna do. This is good because so now you've got a little bit of a you run your own company. You work out. You got your own company down at the Produce Center in Chelsea, but you also do a little bit of a side job, a little bit of side acting, right?
Yeah. It's not quite like it used to be because obviously with the COVID and stuff, and it's Boston free, as you know, from right. Honestly, to go back, right, like we're talking about The Departed. I did The Departed.
Right.
Just a quick. That was I filmed that in 2005. When I filmed that, the tax breaks because a lot of now you see for about 8-9 years there was probably an average of 7 or 8 movies being filmed in Boston for a good 5-6 years.
Yeah.
the tax break mainly, like we say, money. You know what I mean? It's always about money. So the reason now they think they passed it in like 2006 or seven. So when I got The Departed, I filmed it May of 2000, no, May of 2005. And believe it or not, that scene that that I was in, the scene,
That scene, right?
irate scene, that was in a bar in Brooklyn, New York, Sunset Heights, Brooklyn, New York.
Kidding.
Brooklyn, New York. They flew me down there, the whole deal. It was great. But nobody can believe that was, but the reason they did it now, a year later, 2 years later, they would have done it. They didn't have to do it in Southern. They could have done it anywhere.
No shit.
Look,
Yeah.
that's how they did it. All the interiors for that movie, all the police station, all the houses, everything was in New York. He has Scorsese has a little studio in Brooklyn, and that was all done there. But actually, the bar that I was in was a little just think of an Irish pub in like East Boston or Rivera.
Right. No kidding.
Yeah, yeah.
I would have never known that.
Yeah, no one does. It's like it was, but it was great for me. And like I always say, it was one of the greatest life experiences I've had.
Yeah. And you were in that actual scene, right, with Jack?
Oh yeah, I got to talk to him and everything. I talked to him for we worked for 2.5 hours together that day, and he was so nice to me. And you hear over the years you hear about people and this and that, and he was great to me. He was just you could tell, and even the guy Ray Winstone who played Mr. French.
Yeah, I like that guy. Yeah.
You needed you talk about a Boston guy and a guy from Ireland, Britain trying to talk to each other. It was like we needed. So but he was again, he was a wonderful guy, and he even said to me, he says I looked over and I saw you and Jack talk, and I knew that probably made you really happy. I said, yeah, it was great.
Yeah.
So one of those things where everybody was just fantastic to me, and it was. I think it was only about the 15th day of shooting, and actually Nicholson hadn't even gone up to Boston yet to shoot anything. They were that early on, and he said something about at one point. He goes, how's my Boston accent? I said, it was great. What am I gonna do? Tell him
I love it.
Yeah. So he said something like, he said, yeah, we're going up to Boston next week to film or something. He says, they don't like me too much up there because, man, that was the Lakers time too. Like the Lakers, they both sucked at the time, 2005, 6.
But rivalry, yeah.
And he was born in Milton, I think. And he's still like, yeah, it was a whole thing, but he was saying that. He says, his business partner still had people up in Boston that he was really friendly with, but he was fantastic.
So 2 things real quick. So one, I don't know if you've noticed or not, but I've kind of lost my Boston man card because I don't have the Boston accent anymore.
Did you ever have it? You must have, right?
Dude, when I came out here, I would get ribbed all the time. But now, like, as you go on, like, that wasn't a thing, like, it's going to make me upset or anything by any means. But now, like, everybody out here loves the Boston accent, right? Oh, yeah. So it's crazy. So if I'm having drinks or I'm not in a good mood, I get mad or whatever, it pops out. Yeah. But eventually it goes away. But you get involved, where I work for American Express. So,
how you doing?
Right? I don't have to change, like, I'm not changing it for them, but with corporate America, things continue to change.
Yeah.
And, but people will hear it come out of my mouth. It's not obviously not like what you sound like, but my parents still have it.
Yeah.
My older cousins that are out here. But that's number one. Number two, the other thing I was going to say, so what brought you in? Like, what got you involved with some of these Boston movies?
Well, like I said, I never done. I was 44 years old. I went over to audition. Long story short, John Polsey, who grew up with us, he used to hang around with some of the guys, Georgie Barnes and them guys too. But he was very.
Yeah, I'm friends with George Paoni.
Georgie Paoni, he's one of my favorite guys ever and ever.
Nice.
Great kid, great guy.
The roof guy.
Yeah, a great guy. But John, we know all each other. You know what I mean? How that goes.
So John, those guys, but all of us street guys too.
That's what I mean. And John Posey used to hang around with those guys.
My older guy, so I probably know who the hell John is.
The
name it triggered a little bit, but I know Paoni and Barnesy a little bit more because they were part of Oliver Street with me. Yeah.
I'll bump into George. George is still around. He's always been a great guy. Always a good
Yeah,
guy.
that's awesome.
Yeah, yeah. But he actually, long story short, Polsey. This is a good story too, because John Polsey was living in L.A. He's been De Niro's stand-in forever. He's done a ton of movies. De Niro. Oh yeah, he's very close to De Niro. And a woman named Ellen Lewis and Carolyn Pickman out of Boston. But Ellen Lewis was, as if you look up Scorsese's movies, she's casted just about all of them, like going back 20, 25 years. And she's not even that old a woman. She's probably only a little older than me. And John went to see her, and he looks like Pacino, really dark, real Italian, just really Italian looking. And he tried to audition because Scorsese got him audition right at the beginning when The Departed was still in the early stages. And she had said something like, well, John, he wound up having a small part in it. He played the Lynn policeman. He found the body. He had a couple of lines, but he had a part in it. But she said, I got to tell you, John, we're looking for Irish looking guys. And they did all kinds of big, I think East Street Bathhouse, whatever. They had like 10,000 people there at one point. But after a while, she said, well, and then he called Joe Dash, who does some acting too, Joe the George, Mark's older brother, Joe.
Yeah, yeah.
He told, John Polsey told Joe, listen, they're looking for Irish guys. We got a Crafts. So he said, I know like 6 brothers right off the bat, the Crafts brothers would be over there. And 5 out of the 6 of us went to Boston casting, and the woman, Ellen Lewis, happened to be there. Now, she was the main casting director, but it was because of John Polsey we got over there, and there was literally another 15 guys from Cherry Street that went. Some of the younger guys, I don't know if you know, like my brother Bobby went, my brother me, Gal, and Bob. The only one that didn't go is my brother John.
Okay, yeah.
Long story short, Johnny, Ellen Lewis was there, and she must have fell in love with us. Now my older brother Billy got in before I did, and then I don't know what happened, if there was some sort of mix-up, and he didn't wind up getting cast, and that was a whole thing. I felt really bad about that. But what I think, and like a couple years later, Ellen Lewis said in some article that, she said, we brought 5 guys because they were looking for the accent. They were absolutely, that's what they wanted. That's what Scorsese wanted. And I think that was a big thing because there'd been a couple of movies that were made, Boston movies, and the accents were horrible. So I think the better the accent, that's what they were looking for. So there was a chance that most of us were going to be in the movie. And she even said that at a further on down the line, she'd given an interview, Alan Lewis, and said, we brought a whole, she called it the Green Market, brought a whole family of brothers from the Green Market, and they all got in the movie, which wasn't true. But me and my brother Billy was in before I was, and I just...
Yeah, I didn't know Billy, but that's an awesome story. And believe it or not, a couple years ago, I think somebody posted something, one of your scenes on a Departed. So I did a little I was just looking back.
Yeah.
I read that story.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And they were looking for guys, Irish guys with a Boston accent.
Yep. And like I said, I didn't realize till after what a big deal it was. But let me just give it. I'm going to show you that. See that? I just bumped it there. See that's what it says?
Yeah.
Okay. Everett Homey acts. This is 15 years. Where is it?
Shit, how great is that?
Acts accordingly. Where the hell they do? Well, it acts accordingly, but the whole article is about I remember actually we were coming back we went to the premiere in New York. My girlfriend now, she's my wife now. We went to the New York premiere, and they called me on the way back, and they did a whole thing. I'll take a picture and send
It's a great natural high, man. That's awesome.
It was great. It was just wonderful. And like I said, I was sober at the time, 13 years, and at one point we're leaving because we filmed for 3 days. It only took 2.5 hours, but I was there. The whole scene when they were in that bar and they bust his cast and they did that whole.
I mean, right? Yeah.
Yeah. And he walks out of the back room, and then.
Yeah.
So that 2 nights we didn't. I mean, looking back, I wish I knew a little bit more because I didn't know how it worked. You know what I mean? I was just. It was great.
You weren't born into that. You weren't born into that. Yeah.
But it was great. I mean, I always tell the story. The first 2 days I didn't film, and the third day I did. And there's believe it or not, I had a little trail. my name on it and everything.
Kidding.
Yeah, oh yeah, like with just a little tiny thing with the bathroom and the.
Man, that's awesome. That's good.
So I'm sitting there all day in the trailer. Now looking back, I would have went out around. I would have found out where the
Yeah.
craft service was and all that stuff. But I was just kind of.
You're feeling your way, right?
Yeah. And the kid, one of the kids, the workers, the AD, whatever you call it, he walks onto the trailer the first day. Now I'm down in New York by myself. My wife now was with me for the weekend. She came down, stayed at the W Hotel, all on the arm. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
All free. And so she left Sunday. So I was alone basically. And the kid, it was Monday, whatever. The kid comes in, and he says, I got good news and bad news for you. I said, he says, the bad news is we're not going to film today. He says, hopefully tomorrow, but definitely Wednesday, which wound up being Wednesday. He said, the good news is he handed me $440 cash.
No kid. Not,
What do you call it?
yeah, like a per diem type.
Yeah, that was it. That was it.
Per diem.
This is great.
You know what? You get into something like that, and which is, I mean, that's one of like I consider three big ones. And I did watch The Judge
Yeah.
because I know you were in that, right? You were a
The fighter was the,
small part, right, in that one.
yeah.
The crazy thing is, I was telling my wife because I was looking at some of the others. We'll get to Black Mass in a minute. I looked at it and I said, God, I just watched that movie like over Christmas break or whatever a year ago with Robert Duvall, right? Robert Downey Jr. That was kind of a good movie.
It was a good movie. I only worked in, I don't even think I saw myself no, I don't think I'm not that. The one that was on camp was crazy was The Fighter.
The Fighter. That's why I was going to get to that one next too. So what? So I'm going to go. I'm going to go over to The Fighter. The scene with Christian Bale, right?
Yep.
That scene when he was in the prison when they're showing
Yep.
the HBO thing. Yeah,
Yep.
let's talk about that real quick. That was awesome.
That was great. Well, long story short, and again, it's funny. I remember the day. It was the last day of filming. And I don't know if you know, I didn't know it either, but usually on the last day, they go all out with the food. And it's like a celebration. And I've been on a couple of times movies, but I just happened to be The Fighter. And I just was lucky. They filmed that scene. It was supposed to be a jail, but they filmed it like a closed down elementary school in Lowell.
Okay.
The old cafeteria. They made it look like the.
Oh no shit! Wow.
So they just bring you in and they go boom, 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 and all of a sudden he sits me right here, right behind Bill, and I'm saying this is too good. They're gonna move me because I know they're gonna move me, but they didn't. And
Oh.
no, and he wound up actually. He was really good. I always tell this story. This story, to me, it was amazing how good this kid was. I remember going home, my wife remembers it too, and telling her, Christian Bale is going to win Academy Award for this movie because he was Dickie Eklund. I knew, from his fighting days and all that stuff. You knew Dickie.
Yeah.
You knew his brother more, but you know what I mean. But you knew Mickey better than Dickie. But Dickie was a great fighter, tough as anything. Fought Sugar Ray and everything.
Right.
He just turned into him, and I'll never forget. Months later, when the movie was coming out, Christian Bale was doing interviews for it.
Yeah.
Oh, that English accent. I go, I didn't even realize, because he stayed in literally probably 3 hours, and he was really good. He was talking another one who was supposed to have a bad reputation, but he was really nice, and he was talking to everybody. And actually, at one point, you know how the movies are. They don't want to spend the money, and there was only one. He was the only principal actor.
Yeah.
I was so close to him. He turned around at one point and said, "Hey, man, look, that's my kid." And I said, "It's okay, buddy. Like, that's it."
Yeah.
And he said, "Listen, you can't. You know you can't say it." And Bill even said, he says, "Listen, I looked right at him. I think that was I think it was a bigger budget movie. They would have kept that line in because, but you know how it goes. If they had let me say that line,
Yeah.
making 300-400 that day, I would have made about 2,600.
No.
As soon as you pay a line, even if it doesn't make the movie, they got to pay you a principal. I've only had one principal in the whole time, the Departed. But it's, like I said, it's just been.
It's the I don't know. I call it the prestige of being in like big movies.
Yeah.
Big movies.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And I looked at that one, but I was like, Christian Bale, he's probably underrated overall, isn't he?
Well, he's No, I think
He
he
shapes himself into every flipping role, doesn't he?
yeah, he unbelievable, and he looked. I hate to say it, but he
Right.
looked like a crackhead. He looked like a crack. He was so, like I said, I love that story because months later, it's like I literally thought, like I kind of knew in the back of my mind that he was English, but I'm listening to him talk. I'm saying, wait, he never once talked like that. He was Dickie Eklund the whole time. And he looked like they messed his teeth up. He lost all kinds of weight. He was great. Like I said, for the most part, I've had good experiences. And one other real quick experience on the fighter was I worked another day, and it was just like an usher. Like it really didn't mean, I think you see him. You know how it is. It was like 5,000 people, and there was probably 150.
Imagine, yeah.
Yeah, and they filmed it at the Songus Arena. It was supposed to be at Fight in England.
Kidding, no. Oh no,
And
shit.
actually, his trainer was a guy named Bo Cleary, who also had a small part in the departed, and he was the trainer. And
Uh,
I was playing like an usher, and I'm standing in the aisle, and Mark comes out. He's got the gloves on, and this is probably the third or fourth thing I done. Mark comes out, and Bo is punching the back. He's kind of warming him up,
yeah.
and Bo, who knew me, said, "Hey, Mark, look at this guy." And remember, Mark was in the departed. Mark was a producer of the departed also.
Ask about him, yeah.
He looks at me, I look at him, he looks at me, and he goes, "Where's your scally cap?"
Ah, nice.
Yeah, and then a few times the marathon bombing movie I worked, that small, like I said, background. And every time, and there's another movie a couple years ago, Will Ferrell. I worked a couple days on that background.
No kidding. So how was he overall? Like, if you had a little bit of interaction with Mark?
Yeah, a couple that time there, and I was just gonna say, every time he sees me, which is kind of nice, he'll look at me and like I don't go up. When you work on a movie, you don't bother anybody, and
Do that shit anyways.
I'm getting paid. You know what I mean? That's what they're paying you to work with these guys, not get their autographs. So he would every time he saw me though, he'd look at me, "Hey buddy, how you doing?" Like he recognized me, and that felt good.
Like it.
Well, who cares? You know what I mean? I don't care. Nobody's better than anybody, but he's a pretty good guy, and it's nice of him that he kind of like would acknowledge it.
To hear that, man. We're big Wahlberg fans over here too.
Yeah,
I like Mark. I like Donnie too. I mean, he seems like he's a pretty
yeah.
down to earth man, and they're good. Like, but you don't know. I mean, Mark's like super big, right? I mean,
Okay.
all right. So Pete, we're back. I know we were talking about Mark, and you met him and everything else. So as we wrap this thing up, just a quick. I know Black Mass was on the agenda too, just a little bit. I feel like Black Mass, The Fighter, The Departed, top three movies. We had a lot of good ones out there. Um, when you look at what you're doing to help out and just join in on the movies, like what is your perspective on Boston, the movies, how we portray ourselves out there to the general audience?
I think like you said, I think right now it's I don't know, maybe because all brought into sports, it's a good time to be a Bostonian, and there is kind of an intrigue, like you said, even out there. And I don't know if the word's polarizing or, you either love us or you hate us sometimes. You know what I mean? Like, it's like,
That's good.
yeah, no, you're right. The love of it, or you hate us or I think sometimes you get kind of a bum rap. Every once in a while, I don't know. The whole, like, I know there was one little thing in Departed kind of bothered me when they throw the whole Boston's a racist town, and that just makes me crazy. That's
We hear it on Sports Talk Radio, right?
yeah, yeah, that makes me crazy.
And it's couldn't be further from the truth. So once again, I appreciate you coming on. But before I wrap this up, because I'm definitely a foodie,
Yep.
miss a lot of the restaurants back home.
Yeah.
I went back and forth, and I love the Newbridge steak.
Yeah.
Are not out here in Arizona. I found some decent Chinese food that's comparable to like the Kowloon or some of the locals.
Yeah. Still there.
Kelly's, brother, Kelly's. I know there's a lot more. It's become a chain.
Yeah.
Like down.
There's 5 or 6, maybe, I think.
But do you still have some hot spots? We talked about the Blasies.
Yeah.
I remember my mom on a Friday night, the boys that come to the house would come to my dad had we had an above ground pool in the backyard, the Blasies. And they're still on right? And
Yeah, the kid that used to work, the original guy, well, I don't know if he's original, but he sold it to a younger kid named Craig. I don't even know his last name, but he's there now. He's a huge sports fan too, and he's actually been asking me for years for a signed autograph picture of the deposit. I keep forgetting to
like,
bring it. But another thing it made me think of the whole food and everything. You're gonna laugh. Remember the Dragon Chef?
oh hell yeah.
Yeah, it's still there. And different, I think it's not quite as good as it used to be because I think the old timer that was there when we were kids, he was an old timer then.
Yeah.
And I think he only died probably within 10 years ago. And I think the kids took over. It's still good, but it's not quite as good as it was. But that was, I mean, I remember being a kid and my father, New Year's Eve, would drive or walk up the Dragon Chef, got a couple bags of Chinese, and that was New Year's Eve.
It was Chinese.
Yep.
And we still do it here.
Yeah. And actually, the
Tradition.
magic, the place next to McDonald's, we hung around a McDonald's cafe
Right.
right near, right on, down the street from Ferry Street and
Yeah.
on Ferry. And there was a place called the Magic Walk right next to it.
Right.
And looking back, we thought it was the greatest food ever. It probably wasn't that great, but we would drink at McDonald's or whatever, and then go in and get our Chinese food. My poor mother, we had like four of us. We had a little project house, and at the time, me and my brother Jimmy and my two older brothers would share a room. And back then the drinking age was 18. So my poor mother she'd have Chinese food under the bed for 3 weeks sometimes.
Amazing. It's amazing. It is because we are. We were so blessed back then because we had a lot of different, the Italian food, the Chinese food,
Yeah.
roast beef. We had Kelly's, right? As you know,
Yeah.
it's an awesome time.
That was the
So
beginning.
listen, man, I want to thank you for joining.
All right.
I know we had some technical hiccups
Yeah.
for the listeners that don't know. And so we were going to get back this year in July. I hadn't been back in a while.
I was going to ask you, when's the last time you were back?
Time, buddy. Last time we were back, I was back, I should say, was in the mid-90s, so it's been a long time.
Oh, wow.
Me and my wife and my kids were coming back this July, but needless to say.
Oh.
And so next year we're coming back, and at least my wife and I are coming back. And so we're going to do it up.
Is she from here?
No, man, she's from here. So my wife's dad, they've traveled a lot through the country. He's a professional jockey, believe it or not, or was.
Oh, really?
Horses.
Yeah, I probably lost money on him.
But what I'm going to tell you is, brother, I appreciate you coming on. This is great. I know we had a few hiccups,
Yep.
but when I come back, you're going to get your wife. I'm going to get my wife.
That'd be great.
And have a few drinks. Why not
All right.
now? But you know what I'm saying.
Yeah, I have as much fun as anybody, believe me.
Pete, we're going to have a good. And so there you go. So I hope you all enjoyed it. I know I did. Had a blast doing it with Pete. Once again, Pete, thanks for coming on. Thanks for hanging in there. More importantly, I hope you all liked the show. I hope you all liked it. Please let me know. You know where to find me. Tweet me at rwombold55. Please tweet me at rwombold55. As I always say, along with any other thoughts or feedback that you have, things that you want to see or hear on future shows, just let me know. I am all ears. I'm trying to improve this week over week. With that all said, just, again, continue to stay strong, stay positive. Next week's show, it will be me flying solo. It will be my birthday week, so it will be my birthday show, so you will hear a lot of me. I have a lot that I want to get caught up on next week. A lot of live sports are in prime time right now, as I like to say, with playoff hockey, with the NBA playoffs. They have been fantastic. I want to elaborate a lot more on that. I've got some thoughts on NFL camp starting up. I have a lot of thoughts on college football. Again, SEC seems like it's going to continue and it's going to move on. So that's what I will bring you next week. The following week, we will be back with another guest. I will announce that guest next week. So once again, thanks for listening. Thanks for subscribing. You know where to find me on all the podcast platforms. You can also see this episode number 28 with Peter Crafts on YouTube as well if you want to watch us. With that all, I'm going to send you off. I'm sure you might have thought what song I might pick for this one. I'm going to send you all off with the great Dropkick Murphys, Shipping Up to Boston. Thanks again, everyone. Thanks for listening. Thanks for subscribing. I hope you enjoyed the show. And with that, I am now officially out. God bless.